What's up, everybody? Welcome to Fantasy Sports Now. Today we're going over the top 10 fantasy pitchers from the year 2000 to today, which is 2021. Greatest fantasy pitching seasons of all time. Okay, we have a little mini series going. We already did hitting. We did hitting from 2000 to present. We did hitting all time from the 1920s kind of a thing. So if you like what you see today, hit me with the sub, hit me with the like. But I'm a man of content, so let's jump right into the rankings here. All right, this was actually very fun, very interesting to do. Some of these names I forgot, and some of these I had a new appreciation for. So first thing I want to talk about is the scoring system. So this is our standard scoring system that we have used. I know that some points leagues are a little bit different, and that's okay. We can make mental adjustments on here if we want to. But wins are 10 points in our league. Per inning pitched, you get 2 points. A hit, a walk, a hit by pitch is all minus half a point, and an earned run is a negative point, and a strikeout is 1 point. So that's the basic. We also give points for saves, but there's no closers on this list. We're going to do closers as a separate list later. So let's jump in, and we'll go through these pretty quick because I'm all about the content. So number 1, or I should say number 10, is actually kind of surprising to me. It's Jake Arrieta, and I know that he had some good seasons back in the 2015, but I really forgot how good he was back then. Because you think of Jake Arrieta now, you don't think of that dominant pitcher that he used to be, and so let's look at his dominant year. I mean, this ERA over this many innings is crazy. And the other thing too, that I think this is the second lowest on this entire list for earned run. 45 earned runs over the course of 230 innings. That's preposterous. And the reason he doesn't have more points than this is because he didn't have that many strikeouts. And to give you guys some scale, 767 points. I put 2019 out here, and yeah, there's a mini spoiler alert. This was the total of the top 10 in 2019 and the points that they scored. So again, 767. The top one is Verlander. He's going to be on the list. Again, spoiler alert, at 800. But once you get down to number 10, we're at 587. So this is almost 80 points better than the 10th best player from 2019. The third best was Strasburg at 658. So we're almost 100 points better than that at this point. So let's jump in to number 9 now that some of it has been spoiled. Sorry. The 2000 season of Pedro Martinez. And I feel like what makes this list amazing when we get to it is the amount of players that are actually from the 2000-2001 era, which we saw from the hitting. There were so many home runs being hit. It was right in the middle of the steroid era, and yet some pitchers were able to come out and still dominate, which is absolutely shocking to me. I don't know how this happened, really, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. Let's look at Pedro's year. I just talked about having the best earned run average out of the list. I think Pedro actually is the best here. This ERA is ridiculous. Less innings pitched, but more strikeouts, so that's why the total is very close, but it's a couple points higher. So let's just keep going. And I'm going to give you the next two because you just saw them. Is Garrett Cole and Verlander in 2019. Both played for the same exact team, the Houston Texans team. Or Houston Texans. Oh, what am I thinking football here? The Houston Astros. The team that was cheating, perhaps, or maybe is cheating. Whatever, it is what it is. I'm not here to talk about the cheating scandal, but these two seasons are actually extremely similar. The only difference really was that Verlander had more innings and Cole had more strikeouts. I mean, their totals came pretty much, like you see here, they're pretty much at the top in 2019, and there's a massive drop-off. They had 140 more points than the third highest scorer, which is insane. That is a lot of fantasy points, especially if you had one of them. Shoot, could you imagine if you had both of these guys? You would have won your league easily. So 326 strikeouts in a season is a lot. I've always been a kind of guy who's like, people won't get 300 strikeouts again. But I was wrong. Well, here's two of them from the last big season that we had. So there's two of them. But yeah, going over 300 nowadays is really difficult, mostly because they don't pitch as many innings. But these guys obviously went the distance and pitched a lot of innings. So number 6 is kind of a name that's in the news for probably all the wrong reasons, but we kind of forget how good Curt Schilling had a couple of seasons. And again, this is right in the midst of that 2001 season. A ton of innings, so far the most. I don't think it's the most out of anybody here, but ton of innings, ton of strikeouts. He was giving up home runs for sure. I mean that you had to be in this year. Except for, I mean, look at Pedro, 17. How do you give up 17 home runs only in a heightened steroid season? It's absolutely ridiculous, and I love it. Curt Schilling got more points here, probably because he had a few more wins. He kind of went across the board. So for pitchers, you get a lot of points for strikeouts, innings, and wins. Like that's where your bread and butter is. And he kind of did all of those pretty darn well. He had a lot of earned runs, which pulls him back kind of a little bit, but you can see that he is 6th on the board. And then number 5 is back to Justin Verlander. This was before the cheating, back when he was with us, with Detroit. I remember the season very well, and it was this is probably one, it's had to have been a Cy Young winning year. Did he win the MVP? I should know this. I'm from Detroit. I should know this. I don't. So fill me in on that. But it's kind of like that Schilling year. He didn't have as many strikeouts, but 250 innings and 24 wins. I mean, that's enough to bump him barely over that Curt Schilling 2001 season. And then I'm actually going, okay, so the purists who enjoy a true countdown list where you go person by person is going to be a little disappointed here because I'm actually going to give you the last 4 all at once because they all come together and it all will make sense here. So number 4, Randy Johnson. Number 3, Randy Johnson. Number 2, Curt Schilling. Number 1, Randy Johnson. Holy smokes, right? Okay, so the first thing I want to say about, especially with Randy Johnson and Pedro Martinez, and I'll throw Curt Schilling in there as well. I kind of alluded to it earlier, but in the 2000, 2001, 2002 season, this is when people who were not great hitters were hitting 50-plus home runs. You had people, Barry Bonds, that was hitting 70, 60 home runs every year. The amount of home runs that were being hit was absolutely astonishing. Your average hitter, if he wasn't hitting 30 home runs, might not start that year. To think of a 30 home run guy not starting now is crazy, right? And so the fact that these guys in this era were able to come in, and they have not been linked to steroids to my knowledge, and come in and absolutely have the greatest seasons from a fantasy perspective that we've ever seen is absolutely amazing. Because the thing that happens is when you think of the greatest pitcher of all time, people, Sandy Koufax, Cy Young, if you want to include Roger Clemens into the conversation, you would say that. But to me, a guy like Randy Johnson and a guy like Pedro should be really towards the top of your greatest of all time lists because they did it at a time when steroids were rampant. Everybody was taking them, and everybody was just mashing. And these guys still cut through everybody. And it's pretty amazing. So, obviously, the reason they're so high, and if we look at the total points, Randy Johnson here had 120 more points than Jake Arrieta, who was number 10. So, looking at 2019, if I had Randy Johnson, he would have had 300 more points than the top 10, number 10 hit pitcher here. 300. That's basically an entire another player. That is absolutely amazing. I wonder what auction in an auction draft how much he would have made this year because he went from this to this. Unbelievable. So the amount of strikeouts here is absolutely preposterous. 260 innings in a season is unheard of. You can see why in 2000, I think it was 2001. They won the World Series. Arizona won the World Series right here because, look at this. This is just crazy. These are the greatest years from a fantasy points league perspective of all time. I kind of gave you the last 4 too quickly, so I apologize for that, but they're all Randy Johnson, and they're all from the same team. Randy Johnson was an absolute stud. If you're a Yankees fan, you probably don't think that because I think after this season or maybe the next he signed with the Yankees and it just didn't work out the way that I feel like people hoped it would. I remember that because I drafted him and it just didn't work. He was still good, but he wasn't Randy Johnson from Arizona good. He wasn't Randy Johnson from Seattle good. So anyway, guys, this is a fun list. The points here over here are absolutely preposterous. Appreciate you, and we'll see you for the next one.